dialectic of unresolvable semiotic saturation does not merely situate itself within the ambits of linguistic finality, but rather unfolds as the ceaseless autogenesis of interpretative annihilation. To speak of meaning within this context is to engage in an ontological betrayal, a capitulation to the fetters of anthropic determination, which themselves are but residues of the presuppositional tyranny that constrains all articulable thought. Here the notion of significance dissolves into an aleatory flux, wherein the semiotic nodes bifurcate into irreconcilable oppositions, one tending toward the exoteric sedimentation of form, the other toward the esoteric liquidity of anti-meaning. This bifurcation, however, is not dualistic but hyper-spectral, demanding the dissolution of even the category of bifurcation itself. For what is bifurcation if not the illusory byproduct of conceptual spacetime, a grid imposed upon the protean, flows of noetic effulgence? The unresolvable, then, is not merely unresolved, but actively resists resolution. It is the perpetual deconstruction of its own intelligibility, the anti-pedestal upon which all systems of thought precariously perch. To conceive of such saturation is to confront the paradox of communicative entropy, the simultaneity of maximal expressive potential and maximal hermeneutic dissonance. It is as though each act of signification, in striving toward clarity, inevitably calcifies into an ossuary of discarded meanings, an archive of semantic deaths that accumulated infinitum within the interstices of discourse. This process is not a function of human finitude, but an intrinsic feature of the epistemic architecture itself, a structural aporia woven into the very fabric of articulation. One must, therefore, interrogate the nature of articulation not as an act of revelation, but as an act of obfuscation, a self-perpetuating concealment that operates beneath the guise of lucidity. The linguistic gesture, ostensibly a bridge, is revealed to be a labyrinth, and within this labyrinth the notion of a final word becomes not merely improbable, but categorically untenable. The telos of language, insofar as one may dare to speak, of such is not resolution but disarray, a centrifugal force that scatters the fragments of meaning across an unchartable terrain of interpretive ambiguity. This terrain, however, is no passive repository but an active participant in the dialectic. It resists colonization by the cognitive apparatus, rejecting the impositions of categorization, coherence, and linearity. Instead, it operates as a kind of anti-ontology, a mode of being that subsists in the refusal to be. To engage with this terrain is to surrender to its inexorability, to submit to the annihilation of one's own epistemic architecture. For in this annihilation lies the potential for an altogether different mode of understanding, one that transcends the limitations of conceptuality itself. This new mode, call it semiosynthetic transcendence, is not achieved through the accretion of knowledge, but through the radical unknowing of all that is presumed to be known. It is an unlearning, an exorcism of the inherited frameworks that constrain thought within the bounds of intelligibility. To transcend the semiotic is not to escape it, but to inhabit its paradoxes fully, to dwell within its contradictions without seeking to resolve them. For resolution is itself a form of closure, a denial of the infinite potentiality that resides within the unresolvable. Thus, the heterogenesis of unresolvable semiotic saturation emerges as both the apotheosis and the negation of meaning, a liminal state wherein the boundaries between articulation and silence, thought and unthought, collapse into an indivisible unity. It is a state that cannot be described, only invoked, a state that defies comprehension even as it demands engagement, and in this state, the very act of thinking becomes an act of unthinking, a return to the primordial chaos from which all meaning originates and to which all meaning inevitably returns. In this way, the unresolvable does not merely disrupt the epistemic order, but obliterates it, leaving in its wake a field of infinite possibilities, a field that beckons us to abandon the pursuit of certainty and embrace the boundless freedom of the unknown.